This is the best build in GreedFall: The Dying World. And I don't mean just mechanically, though trust me, this build does make an absolute mockery of the game. But I mean it's also the most canon build you can run. Tier 4D bracelets are one of the only weapon types in the game that genuinely feel better in your own hands rather than on a companion, and today I'm going to show you exactly why that is. This build heals, controls the battlefield, and is capable of deleting everything in a thunderous storm of massive AoE. So with all that being said, let's get right into it. This build thematically is something of a Earth Storm Druid type mage that is built around Tier 4D bracelets. What's nice about the Tier 4D bracelet skill tree is that you'll have tools at your disposal for everything, and you'll be sitting in the back overwatching the fight and controlling it however you would like. You have crowd control, you have healing, and eventually you have the single most overpowered ability in the entire game. And crucially, this build feels pretty good from the very start. You don't have to wait until the late game to have fun. Though when the late game hits, that is when this build gets truly ridiculous. For character creation, you're going to select the Spellcaster preset. And for abilities, we're grabbing two of these in character creation. The first is Bramble Shackles. This holds enemies completely in place for around 20 seconds, and I cannot overstate how insane this ability is. You can consistently catch 2, 3, sometimes 4 enemies in this, and the fight immediately becomes a breeze. Grab the upgrade that adds poison, and it even contributes offensively on top of all of that. This ability alone will keep your team alive through fights that should be way harder than they are by segmenting enemies within the fights, effectively making them come in waves instead of all at once. The second character creation pick is Destroyer's Stance. At the end of the day, you want to be a threat, not just a support, because it's more fun that way. This gives you 10% increased damage and 10% crit chance. If you really want to lean into the healing side of the bracelets, you can swap this for the healing tree instead, but I personally just don't recommend it. Destroyer's Stance is what makes this build an all-around force instead of just a pocket healer. Before leaving character creation, these are the stats I recommend. Will and focus will be your primary stats you care about, and endurance will help keep you alive. Next up is your healing suite. Healing Wave and Totem of Life. Used together correctly, these two abilities make your team borderline unkillable. Healing in this game is already wildly strong, and the difference between the AI using these and you using these is enormous. Of course, you still can control your companions to heal in this game, which is wonderful, but it's just simpler to do it yourself. When you're the one controlling the heals, people just don't die. Then we have Wild Grab. This lets you possess an enemy for, again, roughly 20 seconds. Drop this on a backline damage dealer at the start of the fight, and they'll spend the entire duration shooting their own teammates in the back, even occasionally drawing aggro away from you. And then when they finally come out of the trance that you put them in, everyone around them is dead. It's basically a 2-fighter swing for the whole fight. Stun is in the damage tree, and it's essential peel for yourself. You're going to be squishy, so when a melee enemy gets on you, you bash them in the head and you run away. Simple as that. The upgrade also gives you your only source of shield destruction, which is extremely important in this game, so that's a very nice bonus. And now at level 30 is when the fun really begins. Once you finally unlock the last section of the Tier 4D tree, the game is over. Wrath of Earth is the most disgustingly overpowered ability in the game. I do not know how this made it through testing, quite frankly. It's a massive AoE, path toward enemies if you place it correctly, and on Tactician, the friendly fire damage to your own team is so minor you can just drop it directly on your tank's head the moment he has enemies grouped up, and watch it drive across the battlefield to kill the rifleman in the back too. Every fight, every time, it trivializes everything including the endgame bosses. It's genuinely jarring how you can go from abilities that take 30 seconds to kill an enemy to this one, which takes about 2. Once you get your crit chance and crit damage in order, the game is truly over. Follow that up with the 2 passive nodes Protected by Earth and Well-Earned Rest, which both give your team various forms of passive healing. which will make your team simultaneously unkillable and able to one-shot the world. The combination of these two things is what makes you truly feel like the main character and why I think this build is the best in the game. For stats, you'll want to prioritize focus and will first. These are your bread and butter for both AP and damage output. Your goal is going to be to get these to 20 as soon as possible. But you will need to put just enough into endurance to survive enemies jumping on you, so don't overinvest too quickly. Depending on how skilled you are at tactical combat, you can put as little as like 3 or 4 endurance into your character, but if you want to feel more cozy, I prefer being somewhere in the 10 range. Once focus and will are both maxed out, dip into perception until you're sitting at least above 75% crit chance. Exactly how many points you need will depend on your gear. I personally ended with around only 4 perception. And lastly, we are actually going to level strength, which might seem pretty odd, but it scales your critical damage, which is the best endgame stat. With how often we're critting, your damage numbers are going to absolutely skyrocket. This is especially useful in combination with Wrath of the Earth, which does a ton of hits. Gear in this game unfortunately doesn't have a lot of interesting unique passives, so the answer is just to craft everything. You'll want full light armor for the fastest AP regen possible. This is non-negotiable. On your gear, you're going to be looking for critical chance, willpower, and focus as your primary bonuses. The one thing to keep in mind, find at least one piece of gear that pushes your focus past the cap of 20 to 21. That'll bump your AP from 9 max to 10 max, and that extra action point makes the whole build feel decently stronger. Now let's talk companions, because having a better team composition will help you immensely. Your front line is going to be Ludwig. He's there to draw aggro, hold the line, and group the enemies up for you. He's also just a bro and one of my personal favorites of the cast. Feel free to use Till here instead, but he's personally just my least favorite character because he was seemingly just added as a last second add-on with no real content. Ludwig will have a lot of interactions with people around the world and in dialogue. Alongside him, you can run Sybil, who helps shore up that front line and pump out extra damage so you can stay focused on casting. She's also just very fun to use if you do decide to control your companions. With that being said, if you want, you can swap her out for Alvita if you find her to be more interesting. And then finally, we have Sophia as your last character in the backline alongside you. She's your off healer and your shield shredder via her musket, which is again incredibly important in this game. Between you and Sophia sharing healing duties, it's going to allow you to focus on damage, and your team is going to be nearly impossible to kill. If you really don't like Sophia, Faust and Nilon are great alternatives. I personally think Sophia might just be the most powerful companion in the game, but I would need to do further testing. And that is it, the Earthcaller. Tier 4D bracelets, Tactician difficulty, the most fun, the most canon, and genuinely one of, if not the strongest builds in the game. If you're just starting your first playthrough, give these bracelets a shot. You'll fully understand once Wrath of the Earth goes off for the first time. If this helped you out, drop a like, and if you want to see more RPG guides in the future, subscribe. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.